Hey guys. This is not complete, so I will put it as a movie. This is what if Naruto was the king of beasts. Chains, seals, all there to keep him locked away for good, but for his mate, the king of all beasts will break free. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 1. Hiruzen sighed heavily as he walked down the hall leading to the most well-guarded prison in the entirety of the Land of Fire. If he thought about it, then he would consider this the most secure facility in the entirety of the elemental nations. 50 jounin and 100 shunin had been removed from the active duty roster so they could be assigned to this facility, and make sure there would be no success or even a hint of possibility that there would be escape. Added to the fact there was only one entrance which he had just went through, with a solid 3 feet of steel acting as a door. Said door was housed inside the ANBU headquarters behind seals only he and Jiraiya could open without worry. I really should double everything. Hiruzen sighed again through the nose. Carefully stepping onto the lift with the Chunin in charge of it, the Sandaime with his 5 ANBU guards began their descent together in the lift. Not a word was spoken amongst the 5 men, but even so, Hiruzen could see in the Chunin's eyes a sense of discomfort that grew as they were descended. With a small cough he brought attention to himself. Satoshi-kun. The Chunin started at the cough but straightened himself to reply. Hi Hokage-sama? You seem distraught. Care to give a reason? Satoshi made an audible gulp as his face showed his nervousness. He looked over the side of the lift, and judged they had only gone about half of the quarter-mile drop before turning to his superior to answer. I really don't like being near him. No one does. It's a daily thing of drawing straws to see who'll even feed him. There's nothing odd that happens to suggest he'll attack, he's too well secured, but it's what we can't secure that makes everyone jumpy. That got a raised eyebrow. What could possibly unnerve everyone? Last I checked we had even gone so far as to cover it and bind everything save for his ears and mouth. Satoshi nodded. That's the thing, sir, it's his mouth, or rather his smile. Smile? You'll see for yourself soon enough, Hokage-sama. We're here. Indeed, the lift soon came to a stop ledge of a rocky cliff. With the eighth sigh since he decided to come here, Hiruzen stepped off the lift with his guards. Together they traveled along the cliff's edge until they reached the bridge. I will go alone from here on, no arguments, he at least has some respect for me still despite my failures. You being there will only serve to agitate him. The ANBU shuffled, clearly not liking this decision. The Nico-masked ANBU nodded slowly to show they understood. Nodding back, Hiruzen eager to walk across the bridge, idly noting that the wood boards were rather squeaky. Probably to let him know someone's coming. Wouldn't want him to get jumpy. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, he finally saw his destination, a small spire of rock that rests in the middle of a deep pit with walls hidden in the gloom to truly give the sense that the entire world was made of about 40 square feet of rock in the rough shape of a circle, and a bridge. A twinge of regret, sadness, and a small bit of fear crossed Hiruzen's face when he saw the one and only prisoner here, who had been here for almost 7 years now. Hello, Naruto-kun. A single ear twitched to show he'd been heard. That you, Gigi? Been a while, paperwork still trying to bury you. A wry smile graced Hiruzen's face at that. At least the boy, no, young man's sense of humor had not suffered too much. It allowed him to see there was still some sanity in his unwanted prisoner. Not since you told me the way your father was able to do it without going insane, it's allowed me some freedoms. I've even been able to get myself into the best fighting shape I could despite my age. Naruto slowly lifted his head to face Hiruzen, his bangs covering the blindfold covered in dozens of seals that were meant to blind all senses but hearing and taste. But Hiruzen cared little for that, as he saw what Satoshi meant now. That smile would haunt his dreams for a few months. The only thing seemingly wrong was that the canines were a bit large, making them look like fangs. But Hiruzen physically flinched at seeing that smile. The pure madness, the hatred, the pure bloodlust that smile showed would make anyone shiver. The people here are getting a raise, and maybe a vacation. Allowing himself to pull away from that horrible smile, he took in the rest of the now 15-year-old old boy in front of him. 2 months prior to imprisonment, the seal holding Kyuubi within Naruto had been damaged by a foolish jounin who had some minor sealing knowledge and decided to join in the monthly fox hunt centering around the poor boy. The seal had been altered to allow more of the Kyuubi's vile chakra through and causing damage to the boy, mind and body. His mind had been badly damaged by the backlash, and to the best of Jiraiya, Inoichi, and his own knowledge after seeing the results, they could only guess that the demon had foreseen death coming from the damage and had forced a merging with his host, ensuring they both lived in some way. The immediate thing that had caught everyone's attention were the 2 fox ears on Naruto's hair, which had turned blood red, along with the 9 equally red tails firmly attached to his tailbone. Upon inspection by the Hyuga clan head, they found out the ears were strangely real with blood flowing through them like they had been there since birth. The tails, though, had instead been pure chakra. Again, the best guess they had for it was that the tails were made from excess chakra taking a normal form. It had not helped his popularity at all with the village in large, with shinobi all being wary and never taking their eye off him when he happened to be near, and the civilians calling for his death, saying that they needed to be rid of him before the fox could fully retake Ho's form again. Hiruzen had to take Naruto aside once he'd awoken to explain everything in great detail, from the sealing to just who had done it. The boy had a minor meltdown at learning his own father had damned him to a veritable hell, but had calmed himself after a minor rampage in Training Ground 44. The animals had apparently dubbed him as king of all beasts soon after, to their amusement. Stranger though, the Hyuga heiress had not shied away from Naruto at all. Instead, she had become a confidant even closer than Hiruzen had been to the boy. When asked privately why he had been surprised at the answer. Flashback. Hinata's explanation. I owe him my life, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen could only blink at the short answer. Taking a puff from his pipe, he tried for a longer answer. Please explain, Hinata-chan. I was not made aware that Naruto had done such a service to you. Hinata nodded, pausing to collect her thoughts. During the night of my kidnapping, the Cloud Ninja had stopped to rest after a few minutes of exiting the walls. I had come to at the moment and had unknowingly activated my Byakugan from the stress. I could see out of the bag holding me the ninja looking around as if he'd heard something. I began to focus and saw Naruto creeping up on him. I was surprised and to my shame let a squeak out trying to warn him away. This only served to draw the Cloud Nin's attention to him, and it was a vicious beating. The Cloud Nin had a temper and was ticked he'd been worked up over a child. The time spent doing this had given my father the time to catch up and deal with the kidnapper. Father then carried us back, delivering Naruto-kun to the hospital and taking me to a Hyuga doctor he trusted. Hiruzen frowned. Why wasn't I made aware of Naruto's involvement? Hinata sighed. I had been curious myself. Father replied, saying the poor boy has enough attention as it is. If he gets involved, we'd have to hear more rabid mutterings from the fools than we already do. I can see why now. Flashback end. The time Hinata and Naruto had spent together had been encouraged by her father, as he talked with Naruto and found him safe enough despite his appearance. With Hayashi's acceptance, the two had quickly grown close enough that Hiruzen could almost hear wedding bells when he watched them through his crystal ball, smiling at the happiness Naruto had found in one person. The civilians had grown restless over 2 months though, and became little more than animals frothing at the mouth seeing the young couple together. Cries about her being tainted by the demon, rumors helped along by the Hyuga elders who never cared for Hinata and were displeased in her relationship, had brought together the civilians who'd stayed away from Naruto out of fear and allowed a minor bit of peace, into a mob twice as large as any before. Several ninja, all who were either executed or severely demoted after, had even joined, and cornered the young couple in the park. It was a massacre. The first sign that they had royally screwed up was when one foolish person had thrown a rock, intending to hit Naruto, but missed hitting Hinata in the back of her head, knocking her unconscious. The silence that followed would be what many commonly referred to as the calm before the storm, as Naruto had slowly turned to look at Hinata's prone form. Seeing one of 5 people in the entire village who'd acknowledged him, who had become truly precious to him that he'd say he'd even loved her, now laying there on the ground with blood dripping from her, had caused something vital in Naruto's frail psyche to snap. The killing intent had blanketed the entire village. There had even been reports from his ninja in neighboring towns feeling it. When Hiruzen arrived, his more morbid humor had raised its ugly head. This park will never be clean again. Bodies, whole or torn, were everywhere. Only a handful of survivors were found, most of them not surviving the night. Hiruzen faintly registered people fleeing the scene, but his eyes were glued to two lone figures in the center of the caravel of death, one laying, one kneeling over holding the one that was on the ground. When he approached, caution and intuition telling him to come from the front, he clearly saw Naruto biting into Hinata's neck, before releasing her and throwing his head back in a blood-curdling roar. The bite mark shifted before the aged Kage's eyes into what he could only assume, later confirmed, as a mate mark. Naruto had immediately passed out after, allowing him to bring them both to the hospital before being called into a council meeting where all but Hayashi, who remained silent throughout the meeting, put to vote that Naruto was simply too dangerous and would therefore have to be locked and sealed away. The clan heads, who had always sided against the civilians on any affair that concerned Naruto as they knew better and saw him as a hero, had unfortunately no counter-arguments, and reluctantly voted to imprison Naruto. Strangely though, Danzo had also been silent throughout the proceedings. When they first brought him here, they had quickly found out about his strength, and quickly latched both arms to large rocks that hung over the edge of the platform they were on. Each chain drained chakra from Naruto's utterly insanely high reserves and traveled down to the rocks, where the weight seals would be supplied by the constant supply and slowly grow heavier over time, ensuring that the boy could never be able to lift either boulder even a bit. Though at the same time his strength would make Tsunade's look like a newborn's compared to a genin. His tails, all 9, had been fitted like his arms, chakra constantly being drained, leaving his reserves at bare minimum. Though saying bare minimum is like a slap to the face, seeing that even now it feels like his chakra is double mine. I should call Jiraiya back and have him add more draining seals. The final thing ensuring there was no escape for Naruto was the turtle shell-like contraption that encased his torso. Seals upon seals had been laid upon it to further drain his chakra away, as well as several acupuncture needles to stab into nerve clusters, hindering his movements further. Yes, the rocks and turtle shell thing is basically similar to T-Lungs from Kung Fu Panda. The prison scene is more or less how I picture this place except for several alterations. There will be no feather to let him unlock it, as there's not even a place for a key to be put. A cough returned Hiruzen to Naruto's face. We both know you're not here to socialize, Gigi. Why are you really here? Hiruzen rubbed a hand down his face tiredly. The Chunin exams will be beginning shortly. Both ears flicked forward at this. Kurenai-sen has nominated her team to enter. The smile shrank slightly. Didn't they graduate only a few months ago? It seems rather early for this kind of thing for a rookie team. I can assure you her team is one of the most talented teams to be entered. I have little doubt they could possibly make Chunin. Even despite those problems? Hiruzen sighed. Naruto had made only 2 real demands when imprisoned. 1. Monthly to bi-monthly reports on Hinata, more often if she became ill or something important occurred like now. And 2. All males who could possibly seek her out for romantic purposes were to be kept away from her. Foxes were very protective of their mates. The first report had enraged Naruto to the point they had to add the turtle shell device to keep him from leaving. It had become apparent that a Hyuga elder had placed a memory suppressant on Hinata to remove him from her thoughts. The sealing had been done improperly and caused her to become shy and withdrawn, further earning her disgusted glares from the elders. Jiraiya had studied the seal and promptly killed the elder responsible for the abomination, and said the only way to remove it would be a powerful enough trigger from her sealed memories. Hayashi had kept her training at her previous level, hoping the tough regime would trigger her confidence and possibly remove the seal. No such luck could be had though, and the realization that Naruto himself could be the trigger crushed Hayashi's hopes for regaining his true daughter, as he couldn't take her there, and Naruto would never be brought out from the prison. This was Issue 1. Issue 2 was one Inuzuka Kiba, who had quickly made Naruto's shit list as the dog-themed boy would constantly pester Hinata despite various warnings from his mother. Thankfully, a combined effort from Hayashi and some Inuzuka had kept Kiba from being able to totri anything past asking her out. Kurenai had respect from Naruto as she acted as surrogate mother to Hinata and had been one of the more constant deflectors of Kiba's advances. She'd been the reason he'd not been too angry at team placements after hearing Kiba and Hinata were together with Shino Aburame. Hiruzen was still trying to figure out what fool had placed them together, and almost potentially causing a veritable shitstorm. Yes. Kurenai has said that Hinata seems to have gained some level of confidence, and has gotten strong enough to fight Kiba equally in taijutsu, which she added has slowed down his asking for dates since he's found she's not as easy to push around and has focused back on his own training to get stronger than her again. The smile was larger now, but seemed to show more happiness. Good for her, she's getting some of that fire back. What will the exams consist of? The first exam is a written test to weed out cheaters as they try to steal answers from plants we have in there. Boring, she'll make it through. Next. The second part is a team versus team battle over scrolls. They must have 2 different scrolls to advance to the center tower. My kingdom, huh? Well, they'll recognize my queen so they'll be safe from the wildlife. Hiruzen silently agreed. The wildlife would probably attack any other team just to stay away from her. If too many pass the second part, we will have preliminaries, one-on-one battles to remove the weaker genin who got through by chance. Naruto hummed and thought as his ears flicked around. Well, she'll do fine should she fight anyone from her generation save for the team and robot. Must you insist calling Sasuke inside that? The smile turned into a smirk. Make me GG. Hiruzen rolled his eyes. His sarcasm is good though. I should get Inoichi or Ibiki down here to judge his stability at some point. It seems better as of late. Anyway, the final part is a fighting tournament. Should she make it that far, she'd have several fights depending on how well she does. Naruto nodded in silence before the smile melted into a frown. Hiruzen's eye twitched. Why did that frown seem worse than that horrid smile? GG. I want your word that my Hinata-chan will not, under any circumstances in the preliminaries or finals, fight her cousin. You fear he'd harm her because of what happened? A nod. Yes, despite her recent growth and strength, she's not as good as him, and I know he'd be out for her blood. So I will give you incentive. Should they fight and he aims to kill her, I will not only know, but I will break free. No matter how many binds, seals, and so on you place on me, I will tear them away, and destroy all in my path to find him and kill him. Am I understood, Sarutobi Hiruzen? Yes, I understand, Uzumaki Naruto. Good. The frown left, and was replaced by the same grin again. Next time you visit, bring ramen from Nechan. I haven't had any since my last birthday. Hiruzen gave out a dry chuckle. Same old Naruto. It's nice to know you're still there despite everything. I'd still crave the food of the gods if I was bats hit insane. Hiruzen smiled as he turned to leave. I'm sure you would. Better hurry back, old man. I can hear your desk creaking from all that paperwork. Smartass. The ride up was less tense than the ride down, Satoshi noticeably calming the further away from Naruto they got until they reached the top. After entering the ANBU headquarters and a quick shunshin later, Hiruzen began to have anime tears fall comically from his eyes as his desk indeed was creaking from the sheer amount of paperwork in it. As his fingers crossed into his new favorite jutsu, he couldn't help but say, I'm too old for this shit. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Chapter 2. King's Escape, Queen's Awakening. Around a week had passed since the old man had visited him. Well, maybe, time was HRD to tell here. He only could guess based off the meals they fed him the days, but even then sometimes he'd wondered if the guards knew what day it was or if it was even night. He only had any real clarity time passed at all when the weekly shift change happened. A fresh batch to enjoy listening to as they squirm in fear when they brought him food. It never got old. It was probably less than a week. Satoshi had drawn the short stick again to feed him. To his joy, the old man had arranged for Ichiraku's ramen to make around 30 bowls worth of takeout, and to be delivered for him. Someone even had the decency to ensure the delicacy had stayed hot to his glee. Satoshi had set down his 8th consecutive bowl down to grab his 9th. Really, these people had no urgency. He'd been done. Why now if they'd allow him to use his hands? Hell, even one hand would be enough, granted they held the bowl for him. His grin widened as he smelled the next morsel nearing his drooling mouth. He opened his mouth to receive that ambrosia from Earth. A pulse sounded in his head, followed by a searing pain in his arm. With a wet splat the noodles fell from his unclosed mouth, surprising his feeder. No. Satoshi wasn't happy. He'd had to feed the prisoner for the 5th time this week. As if that wasn't bad enough, he had to feed the beastly boy 30 damn bowls of ramen. He'd ask Lord Hokage next opportunity for a raise. The only saving grace is that the second the noodles touched the boy's mouth they disappeared, saving him some time and allowing, hopefully, a faster than anticipated meal. As he held out the first bite of the 9th bowl, he allowed his mind to idle for a moment, thinking back on his life and what he possibly could have done to deserve this post when the sudden lack of slurping sounds had jarred him from thought to notice two very, very, very disturbing things. The first being a pile of noodles on the ground, something he was sure the boy found sacrilegious. The second, that damnable smile was gone, a look of mixed pain and disbelief replacing it. No. Satoshi knew something happened, but what? Is something wrong, Uzumaki-san? He promised. What was that? He promised. Satoshi was then blasted back by the pure rage that radiated from the boy, making him skid back almost to the edge of the platform. Satoshi shook himself even as he fought down the urge to run and looked up at his charge, only to pale at what he saw. Hiruzen cursed at the situation. There had indeed been a preliminary, as he had told Naruto, and he was damn sure he told the people in charge of selections to keep Hinata and Niji separate. Only to see that apparently they either thought he was kidding, or they were bribed into this. Either way, he was letting both Anko and Ibiki have their fun scraping the truth from those idiots' minds after this whole debacle ended. Back to the matter at hand, after giving a smiling Anko permission to torture the fools, he had to let the chosen matchup proceed. He couldn't make it seem as if he was showing favoritism to the young girl lest it be brought up later under scrutiny. He could only hope Niji had at least lessened his grudge against his cousin to make it a swift defeat with minimal damage. I need to stop getting my hopes up. I can feel it in my bones already. The fan is on at full blast, and someone has a mountain-sized pile of shit going right towards it. Hiruzen hid a grimace seeing the damage Hinata took to her shoulder. Having her tenketsu sealed stung her bad, yet she pressed on, making the pit in Hiruzen's stomach grow larger every strike, counter, feint, dodge, or duck given. A landed hit on the chest made Hiruzen give a visible wince. Still the girl would not go down. Yes, here he could see why Naruto liked her so much. The fire in her eyes showed an inner strength rivaled by few. Hiruzen could only imagine how strong she would really be had that fool not seal her memories and true self away. Hiruzen noticed Anko turning away as she began to talk in a hushed tone into her radio. After a moment she held the device out to him. Hokage-sama, there's an emergency distress call for you, she gave out in a hurried whisper. Fearing the worst, Hiruzen placed the device into his ear before giving a crisp order. Report. He's. Oh, Kamien. There was a noise like an impact before silence. Hello? Report. Someone answer me. There was a shuffling noise before the last voice he wanted to hear came over the radio. You failed to keep your promise, Gigi. I really hate when that happens, you know. I'm almost out, so you'd better keep everyone there, because I want them to see just what happens when someone dares lay their filthy hands on my mate. 10 minutes earlier. Satoshi paled seeing that behind the captive boy, one tail waved erratically behind him, free of all bindings. With a swift strike the tail broke another free, acting as a large hammer to break the shackle holding its brother down. Once freed, the now two tails separate and broke the next two shackles, repeating until the final tail was freed. Satoshi ran like a bat from hell, sounding the alarm that their worst fear had happened, their prisoner was escaping. Jumping into the lift he began the ride up, knowing the seals on the walls that prevented walking on the walls left this the only way up and down. Meanwhile Naruto was by no means idle. With all 9 tails free he had them reach to the dragon-headed needles that kept his body motionless, and the turtle shell contraption together before swiftly tugging them out, making him grunt feeling the flesh being torn. Damn, they had those things bugged. They really didn't want them removed. Once the last needle was gone, his tails quickly tore the shell apart, letting him stand for the first time in years. The shadowed darkness suddenly lit up as dozens of lights shone down on him, the sudden brightness making him hiss in pain even though he was still blindfolded. His hearing picked up several people yelling orders and readying a volley of kunai with various poisons meant to slow him down for even just a second as his body purged the toxins. He grit his teeth as he slowly lifted himself up to stand tall, the sudden influx of chakra having quadrupled the weight of the boulders attached to his wrists. He cursed his luck at his body's strength, preventing the shackles from just ripping off his damn arms. A cry of fire came from all sides. There was no stopping it, nor stopping the sting as dozens of kunai now made him into a pincushion. Wait, what was that hissing noise? 2 explosions knocked him back towards the platform's edge, both his arms having been blown off by the exploding note-wrapped kunai. To the side, a seasoned jounin was grabbing the man who threw the explosives by the throat, roaring into his face. "You idiot! You've doomed us all!" The chunin rasped out through his closing windpipe. "Be but captain, surely losing his arms will cripple him." "No!" bellowed the jounin. "That boy is now a chakra beast, meaning he can regenerate anything he loses with only a bit of chakra. He's not even going to stay dead if we cut off his head. He'd just reform in a few years." As if to prove his point, a pillar of crimson chakra exploded from the platform before sucking itself back into the now whole form of one Uzumaki Naruto. His newly reformed right hand pulled the blindfold away, showing the world his violet-colored, slit-pupilled eyes. He looked up at the ninja surrounding him on walkways surrounding the lonely platform he'd knelt on for years. Naruto's eyes narrowed at the thought. A king doesn't kneel. A king is kneeled to by those lesser than him. Closing his eyes and throat, he took a deep breath before his eyes opened again, seeming to glow with barely restrained power. Kneel. Accompanying that single word was the most intense blast of killing intent, ki, that the seasoned jounin had ever felt. The pressure alone of how they were so simply outclassed, like a kage outclassed an ant in pure strength, brought them all down to their knees, their arms barely keeping them from kissing the ground with bowed heads. I always pictured ki to be like spiritual pressure from Bleach. The more chakra you have, the more potent it is, I'd wager. When Sasuke talks with the Kages and Shippuden, everyone started getting tense when Tobirama got that intense look and flared his chakra, so I figured he was also letting out killing intent with it. And Orochimaru, who is a Sannin, could make lesser ninjas see their own gruesome deaths with his ki, which either could be an advanced technique, or the results of focusing ki on specific people. Anywho, one jounin who'd been quite near the original Kyuubi and had been blasted with its killing intent was able to throw an explosive kunai at the bridge, removing his path as it fell uselessly into the darkness below. A sharp directed blast of ki was the jounin's reward, making him foam at the mouth as he slipped into unconsciousness. Naruto rolled his eyes. The fools had no idea what he could do. Too bad for them. With a single leap, he cleared the distance between him and the path before running full speed to the shaft he had been brought down so many years before. Cracking his neck and knuckles, he crouched before leaping up, claws extend to the far wall. With almost practiced ease, his claws sank into the stone before he slammed his tails first up the wall, securing his hold. With a growl, he began to launch himself up and making another hold in the wall. Repeating this dozens of times before finally launching himself up and landing on the lift with the now shaking and currently pissing himself Satoshi. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him before simply turning to look up at the approaching ledge. Upstairs, the Umbu were getting into battle stations. Commander Rio was busy tuning the wireless headset to Anko's in the central tower in Training Ground 44. He knew she'd be the nearest to the Hokage at present, and would be the best chance of giving out the warning to his commanding officer that their fears for 7 years had been realized. Finally hearing a reply, he spat out his demand for Mitarashi to hand the earpiece to the Hokage, hurriedly giving out the password as he was pretty sure he just heard a subordinate scream in pain. Finally he got to the Hokage, hearing the one word he needed. Report. His words died in his throat as he caught movement in his peripheral and turned to see a demonic grin much too close to his face. Oh, Kamien! His scream died down with a swift punch that knocked him back into a wall. Naruto smirked down at the commander's out-cold body a moment before reaching down to pick up the earpiece and setting it on himself. Sighing in frustration, he answered the clearly panicking Hokage. You failed to keep your promise, Gigi. I really hate when that happens, you know. I'm almost out, so you'd better keep everyone there, because I want them to see just what happens when someone dares lay their filthy hands on my mate. His voice became gradually more feral and demonic as his rage became crystal clear. Not bothering to hear the response, he tore the device from himself and began to sprint out the building to where his hurt mate was, his ki growing every minute it took to get there. Hiruzen grit his teeth as the connection died off, and nearly had a stroke when he turned to see Niji moving in to make a killing hit to the clearly defeated girl. Damning the repercussions, he roared out. Restrain him now! Every Konoha ninja above Genin immediately surrounded Niji, not letting him so much as twitch. His face became a sneer when Hiruzen shunsigned in front of him. More special treatment for the main BR slap. Everyone's eyes bugged out at having seen the grandfatherly Sandaime Hokage backhand Niji from the ninja holding him, making him skid back from the group, who hastily removed themselves from the glare the Hokage was leveling at the boy even as he motioned for medics to start healing Hinata. You little fool! I am not giving anyone special treatment here. I ordered your restraint in order to have some chance that the most you receive as punishment is a few months' stay at a hospital. That severely confused everyone in the room. Sure, attacking his cousin would get punishment from the clan head, but surely they wouldn't hospitalize the boy. That's when they felt it, an invisible force that blanketed everyone in the room with a sudden sense of dread and despair. The Konoha adults shook as they remembered twice in their lifetimes having felt this pressure. Once during the Kyuubi attack, the second time 8 years later in what would be referred to as the incident. Kakashi shakily turned to his superior. Hokage-sama, please tell me that I'm hallucinating, that I'm drugged or even in a bad dream. A slowly shaking head along with the Ki's growth made Kakashi mutter a curse. The genin on both sides of the room were finding it harder and harder to stand, let alone breath, save for one who began to grasp his head as if suffering a migraine. Mother, why do you scream? Why are you afraid? His team hearing that blanched even as their knees gave out from the pressure. Sasuke, who returned from the sealing of the curse mark just minutes ago, and Sakura shook as they knew what this was, having felt it once at the age of 8, and twice more since becoming genin, once from Zabuza, the second from Orochimaru. The sheer anger behind it made all three give a silent prayer for whoever the cause of it was. Then, as if someone had simply turned a faucet off, it stopped. Everyone let out a breath they didn't know they were holding, right before the doors leading into the room exploded in, a single leg visible showing the kick that had been used. Setting his leg down and striding into the room with all the dignity, grace, and authority a king would have, Naruto swept his gaze over them room, people's breath hitching as their eyes made contact for the briefest of moments. Settling his gaze down on the prone form of Hinata, his eyes narrowed dangerously before his gaze turned finally to Niji, who took a step back out of instinct, his entire body telling him to run and never look back. A feral growl rolled from Naruto as he began to walk achingly slow towards Niji, his ki pinning the Hyuga prodigy in place as he raised two claws fingers up and leveled them with Niji's eyes. The intent clear that Naruto wanted Niji helpless, unable to so much as protest as he watched his own eyes be destroyed slowly by claws sinking into them. It didn't help that Naruto began to sing as well, upping the creepiness level a few notches. I've got no strings. 40 feet. To hold me down. 30. To make me fret. 20. To make me frown. 15. I've got no strings. 10. So now I'm free. 8. There are 6. No strings. 4. On me. No one could move. No one could speak. Even Hiruzen realized that there was nothing to stop this from happening. He only hoped Naruto would kill the boy quickly to cause less suffering. Niji would have closed his eyes if he hadn't been paralyzed, even if just to escape the sight of those claws inching ever closer. Was fate abandoning him just like that? It had obviously been with him in his match with his cousin, so why would fate abandon him now of all times? Naruto-kun, stop it now. An inch. A full inch was all that separated the claws from the Hyuga's prized eyes before that voice, quiet enough that only he could hear, spoke. Stopping his approach, he turned to face the person he'd pined for every day of his incarceration. Hinaheim. Within a blink he was gone from in front of Niji and now hovering over Hinata, the medics having been knocked away by his tails. He stared down with nothing but love in his eyes into the lavender orbs of his mate, his queen. He leaned down slowly, savoring moment he finally could see his beloved again before kissing her softly. The seal on Hinata had been faulty ever since it was placed. Jiraiya had said it would take a powerful mental trigger to fully break it, hypothesizing that merely seeing Naruto could break the abominable thing. This theory was off, however, as the sight of her love only fractured it. The action of him not only holding her, but calling her his Hinaheim, along with a kiss, had completely shattered the seal, letting loose a rush of old memories and suppressed feelings long since dormant. Hinata pulled back from the kiss, giving him that confidence-filled smile he had dreamed of seeing again after so long. "I missed you, Foxy-kun." He smirked at her playfulness. "And I you, my beautiful moon-eyed angel." They soon lost track of everything else as they began to kiss again in a passionate struggle for dominance. Chapter 3. Hiruzen sighed, relieved that he wouldn't have to tell Hayashi that his nephew died in what would most likely have been a gruesome death. Now on to other matters. Nearing the couple who were still kissing, he gave a cough to gain their attention. He was rewarded with Naruto half opening his left eye to look at him, his message of what? "Can't you see I'm busy here?" more than obvious. "Naruto-kun, I know you really don't want to be separate from her right now, but she needs to be fully healed." The eye gave a twitch before closing. Naruto gave a sigh before breaking off the kiss. "Fine. But I expect her to be fully up and walking in 2 weeks' time. I don't care if you have to drag back Tsunade to do it, but it had better be done, old man." Standing up, he settled Hinata in a comfortable position and watched the medics come back to start the process of healing her again. "I do have to thank you, though I was distracted from my idea of gouging out Niji's eyes and ripping off his balls before forcing him to eat them, and guess which one it was." As he said this, Naruto gave that maddening grin again as he turned back to Niji, pinning him down with his gaze. "Foxy-kun, no?" Naruto frowned, turning back to face his mate. "No? As I recall, he not only had the utter gall of touching you with his filthy hands, a crime I will punish all offenders for, but also dared to attempt killing you. Death is me being kind at this point." The gallery sitting above the soap opera had a multitude of thoughts at what they saw. The Konoha Jounin were waiting for orders from their Hokage, as they knew with the open hostility being shown to Niji that they would most likely have to jump in. The Suna Jounin understandably nervous about what this could mean for the coming invasion. The Sound Jounin, Orochimaru in disguise, had his own thoughts. "Interesting, I had heard several reports on the Kyuubi brat disappearing from my people. If he decides to fight for Konoha, I will have a major threat to my invasion. I will have to contact Danzo and see if we can possibly restrain the boy, or maybe Danzo could use that delightful Sharingan's power he has and make the boy our new pet, Kukuku. Yes, that would be something, Kukuku." The genin all around had their own thoughts. The Suna genin were scared shitless. Ichibi had pretty much said that this boy scared it into submission. They would have to tell their father about this, and maybe convince him to pull back the invasion plan. There was no way they'd be getting involved with the fox boy below them. The Konoha genin were a mix of confusion, jealousy, and of course the few that responded as they normally would. "This is beyond troublesome. Need I say who? Isn't that Naruto? I haven't seen him since that eating competition when we were 7. Who do you think?" Well, that explains why Hinata never seemed interested in other guys. Despite the foxtails and ears, he's even hotter than Sasuke. He's pretty handsome, cha. Not as much as Sasuke. Master Danzo must be informed of this at once. So this is the Kyuubi father mentioned. He said that he was out of reach since the Hokage locked him away. Well, now that the Uchiha clan's property is free, I'll just have to rein him in under my control, then I can finally kill him. My insects are saying not to go against the king. Why are they calling him that? This seems illogical. I'm kind of glad Lee isn't here now. He'd be yelling about the flames of youth about this guy like there's no tomorrow. back to the soap opera below. I know, Foxy-kun, but I will not allow you to kill him. Naruto's eye twitched as he stared into those lavender eyes he loved so much. He turned to stare blankly at Niji, who tensed seeing that violet gaze on him once more. A moment passed as Naruto contemplated his mate's words. He turned back to face Hinata. Can I at least rip off his limbs? No, Foxy-kun. 2 limbs? You will not be ripping off any of his limbs, Foxy-kun. How about the idea I said before? No, I'd rather you never put that image in my head in the first place. How about mauling? I'm sure he'd survive. He has to be able to continue his shinobi career, Foxy-kun. How about broken bones? He'd be able to continue when he healed. How many bones are you planning on breaking? A few, dozen, maybe more. No. Fine, 2 dozen. No. Baker's dozen? No. 6, final offer. Okay. But only 2 of those can be in his limbs. And none on his spine. The gallery above and the Hogue, who stood only a handful of feet away from this exchange, couldn't decide between sweat dropping at the conversation, or pray that Niji would be able to escape from being traumatized by what would be a brutal beating. Naruto nodded. He was actually happy with this. He'd honestly expected only being allowed to break an arm. Then again, this was the lioness he'd been pining for. He thought back to their first interaction. Flashback. Hinata was sitting by him, blushing from the closeness of her crush. Naruto frowned at her shyness. He couldn't allow this to continue on. Hinata, this has to stop. Hinata visibly froze. Her crush just said this had to stop. He didn't want to be near her anymore. Tears welled up as she stood up to leave. What she didn't expect, though, was for Naruto to grab her arm and pull her into his lap and wrap her in his tails, causing her to blush heavily despite her confusion. This is exactly what I mean. You are like a bunny. Cute, soft to the touch, and I just want to hold you close. But this world will eat you up if you stay like this. The ninja world has little patience for people that are easily discouraged and shy away from anything scary. I don't need a bunny to cover my back, Hinata. You don't see a puppy being part of a pride of lions. What I want, no. What I need, is a lioness. I want a lioness that will put her back to mine and that I can trust to protect my blind spot just like I would for her. As he spoke, Hinata's eyes were wide with understanding. Relief flooded through her as she closed her eyes to take a deep, calming breath. Turning to look in his eyes, he smiled to see a burning flame deep within her beginning to grow. A lioness? Thinking yourself a lion because the animals have made you their king? Foxy-kun, you seem to be aiming rather low. Well, this was a nice change from before, though rather quick. Naruto arched an eyebrow up at her nickname for him and her new demeanor before replying. Oh? How am I aiming low, Hinaheim? Hinata gave him a smirk much like his own fox-like smirk. You want a simple lioness? I'll become a dragoness just to make sure you don't get too big a head, Foxy-kun. With that said, she surprised him further by placing a kiss on his lips before promptly fainting. Naruto blinked before looking down at the limp body leaning on his chest being held up by his tails. After a moment, he chuckled. I had thought it was rather quick of a change. You used all your courage, didn't you, little bunny? No, I can't call you that, can I? Fine, you are the hatchling. I look forward to seeing the hatchling becoming the dragoness. End flashback. He shook himself from the memory before turning to the Hokage. GG, after the preliminaries have ended, please call for a council meeting. There are a few things I will be announcing to the clan heads and the fools. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at the odd request. Dare I ask why? Naruto shrugged. You could, but it'd be infinitely more entertaining to me that you didn't. Now, having looked around at everyone and taking a few guesses, I doubt you have more than a couple fights left. So those with whatever you have planned after will take maybe 30 minutes? Therefore, I will ask you call the meeting to be made in 2 hours' time. Now, seeing as the medics have taken my dearest Hinaheim to the hospital, I will take my leave to inform my subjects that their true king is now free to rule them again. Without another word, Naruto turned back to the door he busted open and headed out. Before he crossed the threshold he stopped and turned back to level Niji with a look he'd seen once from an ANBU who'd protected him before his merging and had allowed Naruto to see his face, and had used said look when he'd gotten irritated with Naruto ignoring him. To play with his mask. Yamato's scary face. Niji visibly flinched at having the attention of the demon boy on him yet again. He'd been sweating bullets the entire conversation, where the only topic had been about how broken his body would be. Naruto spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Niji-san. Hinata limited me to 6 broken bones, 2 of which will be in your limbs. I have chosen to break both your femurs, 2 ribs, your right jawbone, and the last one will be a surprise. Now you may think, okay, it'll happen all at once and then I'm fine. Wrong. You see, dear Hinata-chan has forgotten to limit what else I can do to you, leaving those so many options for me to explore. My only limits are 6 broken bones, and you are able to continue being a ninja. Let's use one example of what will be happening to you. I will be breaking 1 rib, and then I will claw you mercilessly like Tora-chan, leaving a multitude of minutely bleeding cuts all over you. Take note that is 1 bone of 6, and take further note that I never specified when. This will be further punishment, as I will torture you mentally into paranoia, which is healthy in ninjas, so it'll be within Hinaheim's limits. It'll start small. I'll just happen to show up when you're out on a walk or at a training field. I will just stay in your peripheral, just in the corner of those special eyes of yours. You'll begin to see random shadows in your most private moments that can't be explained by anything. You will see them anytime, anywhere. Your room, the bath, when you're with friends, they will be everywhere. The only time you'll see me like you do now is when I approach to give you your punishment. And please do fight back. I want to laugh in your face as I make the current punishment worse. Hemhehe, ahaha, ahahahahaha. The laugh he gave as he exited the building sent shivers up the spines of everyone. Even the disguised Orochimaru shivered at the laugh and the planned torture. The boy had imagination and apparently a flair for this type of thing. Hiruzen sighed. Whatever Naruto wanted with the council in 2 hours, it was sure to be entertaining, or traumatizing. Yeah, probably traumatizing. Turning to the now pale and shaking Niji, he gave him a look of pity before returning to his observation balcony. 2 hours later. Hiruzen sighed as he sat at his seat at the head of the council room. On his left sat the civilian council, headed by the Haruno matriarch Sukuna. Don't care if this is her actual name or not, no comments on it please. They waste both our times. And on his right sat the various clan heads, with Danzo sitting in as representative to the nearly extinct Uchiha clan. On either side of him sat his 2 old teammates Koharu and Hamaru acting as his personal advisors. Hayashi, being the unofficial head of the Shinobi Council, asked the question on everyone's mind. If I may, Hokage-sama, for what reason has the council been summoned? I know we have a meeting scheduled in 2 days, so it seems odd that this one would be called now. Before Hiruzen could reply, the doors were knocked down by the bodies of the 2 ANBU who'd been standing outside as guards. Walking in with all the swagger one would imagine the king of pimps to have, Naruto had that eerie grin on as he waved his arms out in a flourish. Hello, esteemed council. How are you all this fine and dandy day? I myself am fine, just broke out of the most secure prison ever. A few years before I planned by. Oh well. It's not like I couldn't have done it sooner, been able to leave for 4 years now. Really boring down there though. Oops, there I go rambling. It's been so long since I talked so much in one day. I'll have to thank you all for that later. Probably a series of pranks. Yes, nothing too bad. After all, one half was reluctant, so they get the minor pranks. The other half will of course be getting humiliated to being forced to flee out of shame. As Naruto continued his rambling and began talking about various ideas for his pranks, the council stared in shocked silence at the fact that the demon boy they had locked down more securely than the village during a war was standing there in front of them, talking about minor to horrifying pranks he was going to play on them all. The civilian council were a hair away from outright fainting, but in the recesses of their mind, the arrogance they'd gained over 15 years of undermining the Hokage's rulings was starting to reboot their minds and process that the demon brat had appeared in front of them. On the other side, the clan heads all had various looks of surprise or fear at hearing the pranks planned. Shikaku Nara had his eyes wide and mouth agape, all laziness forgotten. Suminazuka, Inoichi Yamanaka, and Choza Akamichi had their jaws scraping the ground and eyes bugged out. Shibi Aburame showed no real reaction but was having the same problem as his son did 2 hours prior. Hayashi, to his credit, kept a look of indifference on his face, though inwardly he was busy thinking hard about how he could use this to break Hinata free from the seal. Hayashi personally was a bit happy Naruto was free, as he liked the boy and knew he was the reason that before the sealing, Hinata had shown tremendous growth in both skill and backbone. With him free, Hayashi hoped to soon see his true daughter again. Danzo, like Hayashi, kept his stoic face, though inwardly he was cackling at the chance to finally having a chance to control Kyuubi for his own plans. Hiruzen had kept the prison so tightly locked and had screened all the ninja being used as guards so well that he hadn't even attempted to sneak in a rude agent for fear he'd be caught in the screening, and then Danzo would be under heavy scrutiny. And for the Aburame, I'm considering putting up flypaper over everything in their compound. But enough about the pain and humiliation I will put you all through. The reason I asked the Sandaime here to call this meeting is to make you all aware that there will be several things happening. Firstly, in the final part of the Chunin exams, Neji will be facing me in the first match. Next I will be getting my house and inheritance. Naruto would have continued had a rather fat and pompous-looking civilian not finally broken from his shock and stood up to shout. "How dare you, demon! You dare come here and make demands of the council?" Naruto fixed a blank look at the civilian, before walking towards him. No, 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 no. Every no was accompanied by a step until he was face to face with the man before beginning to repeatedly slap the man's face left and right, each slap accompanied by a no. No, 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 he began to slap faster. No, 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 he grabbed the poor civilian by his shoulders before giving him a vicious headbutt, sending the man to be embedded into the wall behind him. No! Naruto sneered at the man. Fools who think they have power that they don't make demands. I, on the other hand, am king. I have the power here. What I have instead of demands are expectations. And the expectations will be met. Do you understand, you arrogant little shit? Naruto paused a moment in thought. No, wait, sorry. I can't call you shit because that would be insulting to what comes out my ass. I will amend my words. Ahem, do you understand, you arrogant bacteria that survives in my shit? At this the dam broke and some began to laugh while rolling on the floor. Choza guffawed loudly, Shikaku sighed with a smirk. The rest chuckled softly, even Hayashi and Shibi gave tiny smirks. Naruto returned to his original spot before sweeping them all in his gaze. The civilians had looks of pure fear now, none daring to speak out lest he repeat his performance with the previous outburst. The clan heads were showing amusement, or still laughing. His eyes narrowed on Danzo a moment as he sensed something vile from the man before looking at the 2 advisors. Deeming them too unimportant to care about, he focused back on the Hokage, who seemed to be trying to suppress a smirk while giving a serious look. Coughing into his fist, trying to restore some semblance of order, Hiruzen spoke out. Now that the outburst has been quieted, can you please repeat your expectations? Naruto nodded before straightening his trench coat. Hiruzen blinked. Trench coat? Mentally shaking himself, he took a hard look at the Hanyu in front of him. Naruto had grown to 5 feet 9 inches in the prison, not that anyone would know, making him reasonably tall. His red hair, much like his mother's looked similar to his father's style. The clothes that certainly hadn't been worn in training ground 44 was new. Where the hell did he get them? Naruto's new look was a dark blue trench coat over a mesh shirt and black cargo pants. Focusing on the pants, Hiruzen frowned. Something was off here. Wait. Before that, Naruto, where are your tails? Naruto smirked darkly. Why, whatever could you mean? What tails are you speaking of? Hiruzen sighed in annoyance. No games, Naruto. You had tails last week when we spoke, and when you showed up at the tower earlier, and now your tails are gone. Why? Naruto raised an eyebrow. You're getting old. You only just noticed I haven't had my tails out since I escaped? Hiruzen's eye twitched. Naruto chuckled again. My body and everything about it has been comprised by mixing together the traits of a regular Uzumaki body and a Biju's body. Biju are creatures made from sentient masses of chakra, and in Uzumaki have incredibly dense chakra. Mix those two together, and you have the Uzumaki density, making the Bijou chakra able to do things it couldn't before. For instance, my tails? They were confirmed to be solid chakra, unlike my ears. So is it too hard to imagine that I could simply recall my chakra back into my body? Everyone's eyes widened at that. Shikaka asked, "Is that how you escaped?" Naruto smirked wider, almost splitting his face in half. Yes and no. But that doesn't matter right now. Ahem, so for my expectations, I will be facing Niji in the finals. I will have the keys to my house given to me. I will kill any fool that tries something with me. I will have 40 or 50 bowls of Ichiraku ramen. I will take a piss on the man currently glued to the wall while he's in the hospital. Naruto-kun, you're rambling. Hiruzen tried to veer him away from thoughts like the last one. Naruto shook his head. No, I stated 2 expectations and then was listing things that will happen. Ah. Though you reminded me of something. Inuzuka-san. Sim wasn't entirely comfortable with the way he singled her out all of a sudden. Yagie. Uzumaki-san? Later on around 6 or so I will coming by to talk with you in private about something involving your son that quite frankly disturbs me. We will be speaking, of course, about whether I either beat him senseless, or just outright kill him for doing something I find unforgivable. Sim nodded with a gulp. Kuramura had been muttering this entire time about Naruto being a king and warning her not to backtalk, or be disrespectful to him. Good. Now Shidano, I will be coming to see you around 8 for a private chat with you about various things, like whether I let any of the Hyuga elders see tomorrow or if they will be allowed to write out their wills. I've been denied one particular thing with your nephew, so I may need to do that with an elder. I really am curious about how long it would take to beat someone to death with their own leg. Naruto didn't even acknowledge the nod of confirmation as he began walking out of the room, rambling on in a low voice on various atrocities the Hyuga elders would be subjected to. Not even bothering to go around the 2 Anbu and instead opting to step on them as he left. Hiruzen sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. As amusing as it had been, he knew this was going to be a major headache later on. Deciding he had enough for the day, and seeing the 2 Anbu stirring and groaning as they woke up from their forced nap, he spoke up. Meeting adjourned until our next one in 2 days. Anbu, take that man currently in the wall to the hospital, and tell the nurses to check every hour for wet spots on him. Chapter 4. I really should have planned those visits for earlier. Naruto sat on a bench in the deserted park. Why was it deserted? Simply because this was the same park he'd massacred those people when they dared harm his mate. Giving a soft chuckle, he flicked his ear act to catch the whispers of 3 children who'd been following him for the past hour. He was fairly impressed with their dedication to following him, though the brats really could stand to have been more discreet. Not that it mattered, his sensing abilities would find even the most seasoned of jounin. After all, even the most hardened or conditioned ninja made sounds that his fox ears would easily pick up. Like, say, a heartbeat. He tuned into their conversation. Kono-kun, you sure this is the guy your gramps told you about? The supposed strongest in the world? He really doesn't look like much. Red hair, animal ears, violet eyes. Matches the description you gave us. But I agree with Miyogi-san, he doesn't really seem like he'd be undisputed king of beasts. I'm telling you guys, it's him. Though I don't see the tales Gramps mentioned, so I am a bit skeptic myself, but there's no one else I've ever seen in the village that even closely matches the guy Gramps told me about. This guy is either him, or his twin brother. Well, he's not my brother per se. 3 strangled yelps sounded behind him as his clone dragged all 3 of the 11-year-olds out to where he could see them. He really should thank his father for putting that imprint of his soul into the seal. It gave him so many useful jutsu when he, his mother, his father, and Kyubi all merged. Though he did gain their memories, it still hurt to know he'd never get a real chance to talk with them, or just a piece of them as it were. And slug his dad for sealing Kyubi into him. Yeah, that would settle some issues. One good punch in the kisser. Well, the various jutsu made up for quite a bit. And with his mindscape and seal merger, he was giving plenty of time to not only shuffle through the memories but give those various techniques a try. Even learning that the shadow clone had been a massive boon as he'd taken to creating his own once he'd mastered the jutsu his parents had and the two-tailed beast techniques the QB used. Shaking himself from thought, he looked down at the three kids. You three have been following me ever since I passed the dango shop. Care to say why? The boy with the ridiculously long scarf stood up. My name is Konohamaru, this is Udan and Miyogi. We followed you because you looked like the guy Gramps told me about. Arching an eyebrow at the bold boy, Naruto asked, and pray tell, who is your Gramps? Konohamaru huffed. My Gigi is the Sandaime Hokage. And? Konohamaru and company blinked. Huh? What do you mean and? A finger flick to the forehead was his only answer. Granted, he flew a dozen feet from the finger flick details. Kono-san/kun! Yelled out the two kids left standing, shocked seeing their friend treated little more than a fly. Naruto wagged the finger he just used. Don't act arrogant with me, kid. You are a baby chimp compared to your grandfather, who is a silverback. And to me, he has his own place compared to me. Below me, of course, but then again, everyone but the gods themselves are below me. So don't get full of yourself because a relative of yours is famous. Konohamaru rubbed the slightly bleeding mark on his forehead as he looked at the older boy who still sat there with a smirk. He's different, and that's what I need. Dusting himself off, the boy stood and walked until he was 6 feet from Naruto before bowing with as much respect he could muster for the older boy who looked confused at the gesture. Teach us, please. Huh? Was the intelligent answer that Naruto gave. Udan sucked in the snot that seemed to permanently hang from his nose before answering for the still kneeling Konohamaru. He wants you to teach us, sir. As the Hokage's grandson, he tends to get the same treatment from everyone trying to get in good favor with the Sandaime. Basically suck-ups. With me and Miyogi-san, his best friends, it somewhat bleeds over to us as well. With you being the only person who seemingly doesn't care about his relations to the Hokage, we see you as possibly the only person capable of really teaching us. With the explanation over, the two standing children now also kneeled on either side of Konohamaru before they all chorused out. Please teach us, boss. Naruto stared blankly at the three kneeled before him. This wasn't in any plan of his yet. Looking at the leader of the trio, he couldn't help but see some similarities between them. The drive he had before the merging to be seen for his true self, the courage to face on any challenge. Perhaps a small test would be in order. And so in silence they all stayed, him sitting there with a blank look as they stayed kneeled. 10 minutes passed before Konohamaru, too used to getting things almost immediately, finally ran out of patience and stood up glaring at the older boy. Well? A blank look was all he received, not even an eyebrow twitch. Several tick marks appeared on the younger boy's head at the impassive face that gave no indication that he was even breathing. Konohamaru, finally losing his temper, leapt with a fist cocked back ready to slug the older boy before an ungodly pressure slammed him into the ground. His breathing labored as he could only stare up at the now standing Naruto, who had a look of absolute rage on his face now. You forget yourself in front of your betters, boy. I could kill you here and now, and you know what? I wouldn't be punished more than a bit of guilt for giving the old man a bit of sadness at your death. Such is the power I have, the power of a king. You and your friends would wish to be my disciples, yet you can't stand even a fraction of my true power. You want me to teach you worms something? Then stand up on your own 2 feet and say it. Naruto lessened the killing intent he was emitting just enough that they could stand. Now to see if they'd dare to stand up to him after seeing just a fraction of his strength. And he wasn't disappointed. Holding his smirk back, he watched the three begin to shakily stand, fire blazing in their eyes as they wobbled on their legs. It took a minute, but when they straightened up fully, they forced themselves to breathe deep before shouting. Teach us, boss. He slowly raised the pressure on the three until they were having to hold each other just to stay upright. He stared at them darkly, inwardly laughing at seeing their scared and sweaty faces. He turned away and let the pressure dissipate. Fine, be here tomorrow at 7 in the morning. The trio face planted at the casual order. With a chuckle, he turned his head to look back once more, calling out, Oh, and be sure to eat well. I'm going to make you three either pass out or have to crawl home when I finish your training. With that he disappeared, showing he was simply a shadow clone. Konohamaru sighed. Somehow I get the feeling we're either going to be legends, or in an asylum when all this is over. In the Hokage office, Hiruzen, who had been watching the interactions between the two, sighed in relief. Happy and worried in almost equal measure, he couldn't help but agree with his biological grandson's statement. His surrogate grandson would probably either make them strong, or break them horribly. I'm getting too old for this shit. 5:59, Inuzuka compound. The gate guards had been warned ahead of time to let him through when he arrived, so entering the compound was not made into an issue, thankfully. He was politely directed to the clan head's house, where some stood waiting for him. Uzumaki-san, welcome. Thank you, Inuzuka-san, your home is quite comely. Given the seriousness of the matter, he decided to use a more serious personality for the time being. Best to reserve his insanity to be unleashed on the Hyuga elders in a couple hours. Some led him inside to his private study, where she offered him tea, which he declined. Once settled, she started the discussion off. At the council meeting you said that my son had done something that offended you? Could you please elaborate? Naruto nodded. Yes. Now it wasn't well known, but when I was incarcerated, something I will be pranking all the clans for, by the way. Good luck with that. Anyway, part of the deal I made with the Hokage was that I'd be given regular updates on several things. For about 3 years now, those reports included your son on occasion doing something that I find rather unsavory. He apparently got it into his head that Hinata was available for courtship, and as such has actively pursued her hand. I know for a fact you are aware I have marked her as my mate, so why did you allow this? I know you are aware of his actions. Some sighed. Yes, and I had pulled him aside when word reached me and told him she was already betrothed to someone, but didn't say who. He didn't take it well and said he just challenged the suitor for the right, and said he'd prove he was the alpha. That got a bark of laughter. Oh yes, show the apex you're an alpha. Foolishness at its best, or rather ignorance. Some nodded. It would do her no good to argue with the boy. Kuramaru, upon returning to the compound, had spread the word to all the hounds there, and as they had acknowledged Naruto as their king. Fighting the boy would only cripple her clan. With a snort, Naruto stood. As thanks for attempting to sway him away from his idiocy, I will give him 2 chances. When he hears of this, he will most likely try to challenge him. I will not kill him, but I will beat him until he's out call and then leave him on your doorstep. You will do what you can to convince him to stay away. But should he not listen and try to fight me again, or worse, try to force himself on my mate, I will kill him without remorse. Without even allowing her a word in edgewise, Naruto left, not even caring that the sudden departure gave him more time to waste, and of course be bored. And a bored Naruto was good for no one. And who would this directly affect? Hyuga compound, 5 minutes later. The 2 Hyuga guards were more tense than they had ever been. The only reason they weren't in an absolute panic was that Hayashi had given them plenty of warning that Naruto was not only free but would be visiting later on. Had the boy simply approached and entered, they would have been okay. But no, Naruto had instead chosen to simply stand a good 20 feet away and just unblinkingly stare at the 2 gate guards. Glancing at each other, the guards quickly did a game of Jankenpa. The right guard lost with a sigh. He turned back to Naruto and hailed. Uzumaki-san, you have been given permission already to come in when you arrive. Wouldn't you prefer to come in instead of standing there? No answer. To further emphasize that Naruto was seemingly ignoring them, a bird came and landed in the bright red hair. The guards gave each other a look again before another game of Jankenpa was played. This time the left guard lost and entered the gate. After 10 minutes the guard returned with Hayashi, who had a raised eyebrow upon seeing the young Bijou Boy hybrid seemingly frozen on the spot, and that several birds had taken to treating him as a statue. Sighing, Hayashi knew what this was. Naruto-san, I know you're tick about verbal promises, so I would suggest going to check on my daughter. I have been informed she's been placed in room number 329. I would suggest you go see her and make sure she's being given proper treatment. Almost instantly Naruto smiled widely. Ever the voice of reason, I see where Hinaheim gets it from. In a burst of speed that made the comfortable birds chirp out in surprise at the sudden loss of their roosting spot, Naruto disappeared. Hayashi sighed and turned to the now very confused guards. Naruto is strange like this even before he was jailed. When he'd make a verbal promise or a statement like I'll be there around 8 such as this instance. If he happens to be more than 10 minutes early or if his actions seem to deviate too far from his stated goal or action, he does what he can to change that. I saw it happen once when Hinata said he would visit and bring a dozen flowers. 4 hours later he showed up dirty and smelly but had a dozen wild flowers. As it happened, the Yamanaka flower shop had been closed early because the clan head's daughter got food poisoning and so they had to leave. The boy had ended up having to search for the flowers himself. The reason I say this is because in the future I can see this sort of thing happening every so often. If such a thing happens, it's best to suggest something like I did that will allow him to complete his statement to his own appreciation and not end up causing you or other guards discomfort like he just was. Be sure to tell the others on guard duty this. Oh, and be sure to expect him around 7:50. He'll want in at that point. Tell him that I have called a meeting for the elders at exactly 8, and that he will find me in my study before then. Getting nods from the guards, Hayashi swept back into his compound with a smirk. Soon the cancer of the Elder Council will be removed. Sorry, father, but you lost any hope of surviving this when you ordered my daughter to be sealed. Going to his study, he passed by a visibly nervous Niji. Hayashi sighed. He couldn't punish the boy for his attempt at killing Hinata. Not with what Naruto had planned for the poor lad. When the Hokage had informed him of what Naruto had said, Hayashi had flinched with sympathy. It would have been simpler to just use the caged bird seal to give Niji pain until he fainted than what Naruto possibly had planned. He had no doubt that Niji had used his Byakugan and seen Naruto just staring outside the gate. At this point, Hayashi was also sure that Naruto had somehow known Niji was looking and had stared at him, seeing as he had been seeming to stare through the 2 guards. Hayashi continued to his study and returned to the damnable pile of paperwork on his desk. This was the reason no clan head ever really wanted to be Hokage. They already knew about the horrifying thing that was paperwork, and they also knew that the Hokage had at least 5 times the amount any clan head did at any given time. Well, not anymore. In his last couple visits to give the Sandaime an update on Hinata, he noticed the dramatically reduced pile of paperwork and the general smugness the older ninja had. He wasn't sure of it, but he had suspicion that Naruto had told him his father's secret of defeating paperwork. Yes, Hayashi and the clan heads knew exactly who Naruto was and as such had no real dislike of him. Hell, Hayashi had been Minato's teammate along with Kushina, and Sum and Hayashi's own wife had been very close friends with Kushina. It didn't even take his all-seeing eyes to see who the boy's father and mother had been. Shaking himself from those thoughts, Hayashi began to think of a way he could possibly convince Naruto to divulge the secret. Maybe pay for an official wedding ceremony for him and Hinata? He was sure Hinata would convince Naruto to make it humanly official, despite the fact Naruto had pretty much placed an irremovable mark on her that tied them together for life. 7:51. A knock on the door made Hayashi flick his eyes to the clock before giving a slight smirk before turning to the door. Please come in, Naruto-san. A happily smiling Naruto opened and entered the study. I must thank you for that, Hayashi. Seeing my precious Haim cheered me right up. I was also able to make sure the doctors and nurses had all the right incentives to make sure she'd be right as rain quick as possible. Hayashi raised an ever-regal eyebrow. Dare I ask? Oh, I simply said that each day they passed my given deadline I would fill 2 rooms up and deliver 2 very fresh corpses, each with injuries and deaths that can only be described as lethally humorous. Humorous to you or them? Naruto chuckled darkly at that. You know? They asked that exact question. My reply simply was, you really don't want to know, and you'd probably learn something about yourself if you do learn. Hayashi sighed, rubbing his temple to stop the incoming headache as he looked up to the clock. We should go, the meeting is in 3 minutes. With a smirk, Naruto raised his hand to stop Hayashi from standing. I'll go by myself. Just send a doctor, in about 30 minutes. I'll be sure to soundproof the room. Wouldn't want anyone barging in to defend the oh-so-honorable Council of Elders. Hayashi frowned. And what stops them from simply running before you can stop them? Or gaining entrance without resorting to the method you used today at the council meeting today? I'd rather you not injuring more of my clan than you already have planned. With a devious and dark smile, Naruto shifted into an exact lookalike of Hayashi, though still having an evil smirk in place. Hayashi's eyes widened. Naruto had morphed into his likeness, sure, easy enough for any competent genin, but the method had for a moment made Naruto look like a bluish blob in a humanoid shape. How? The pseudo-Hayashi shrugged. It's like my clothes. I'm using Bijou level chakra with Uzumaki density. I can make my chakra into anything from clothes, to items, to even make a disguise. Now you sit there and finish that endless stream of papers while I go remove a few stains. And be sure to send a doctor in 30 minutes. Without another word, the Hayashi double had swept out in a regal flourish that made the real Hayashi blink. Is that really how I look when I leave like that? Naruto had to bring out all the nobility of his stature to keep the face of a stoic Hyuga clan head from cracking as he neared the elders who knew not the horrors they soon faced. Upon entering the room, he swept his gaze over the 5 elders. Good, no one was missing. Hayashi's father spoke up first. What have you called this meeting for, Hayashi? Naruto had to bite his tongue to hold in the maniacal cackle in his soul as he shut the door behind him, 2 seals shining under his hand. Thank you, mother and father, for your knowledge on sealing techniques. With the silencing and locking seal in place, he allowed a feral grin to grow on his face as he turned to the elders that raised eyebrows at the grin. It's simple, honored council, you've all been called here to die. That caused the elders to stand immediately in their revered Jukin stances even as Hayashi's father roared out. Hayashi, have you gone mad? As Naruto shifted back into his normal form, he chuckled darkly before bursting out into the cackle he'd been holding back before simply saying, Of course I have. 20 minutes later. Oh, we've made terrible mistakes, Naruto-sama. Please forgive us. It seems rather late for this. Surely I can gain your forgiveness in some way? I really don't think that's possible given the circumstances. Whatever could you mean? Well, you do seem to be missing your body. Indeed, after the first 10 minutes of a scene that could be described with various words such as bloody, or vomit-inducing, hilariously horrifying, and of course that was actually possible? I thought that was a myth. Naruto was now using the head of Hayashi's father as a puppet so he could converse with the now dead man. The bodies were now so torn and mixed around it was impossible to tell where one body started and ended. Well, it's not like Hayashi needed this room anytime soon. Sighing as he'd finished rather quickly and the head puppet now bored him, he needed something to occupy him for another few minutes. Sensing an approaching chakra signature, he smiled darkly as he went to the door and yanked it open to reveal Niji, who had started at the sudden action, and after registering a now bloody Naruto as being the one to do it. Hayashi started as he suddenly heard a high-pitched and definitely girly scream come from down the hall. Turning back to his desk, he kept himself busy, deliberately ignoring the sudden scream. I don't want to know right now. I'm damn sure it's related to Naruto somehow. Whoever gave that scream either saw him bloody or saw the room, and I know he wouldn't act so sloppily. Swallowing the nerves down, he summoned a doctor before confusing the woman by telling her to gather all of the family doctors and to document everything they found in the council room and to turn in a report the next morning. Deciding it best not to argue, she had quickly left to do her given assignment, hoping it was short and simple so she could rest for the night. Poor blissfully ignorant woman. Hayashi quickly decided it was time for bed after the doctor left. He quickly informed his guards outside his bedroom that if any of the family doctors came, they were to be told that everything would have to wait until morning. No exceptions. Naruto was now skipping happily on his way home, reflecting the day as a whole. Yes, this has been a very good day. Chapter 5. Naruto shifted in his bed at exactly 6 in the morning. His parents had developed extraordinary skills over time, one including being able to wake at a predetermined time thanks to their inner clock. Thanks to the merge, Naruto had been able to absorb that skill as well, and now that he was free, he could actually use it. The transition from the prison's time schedule to normal time was rather simple. The wonders of being me. Stretching himself out, he sat up on what previously was his parents' bed, now his and his mates' when she would finally join his side. Speaking of which, a small spider crawled hastily onto his shoulder, gaining his attention. Ah, hello there, are you the new queen of spiders? His advanced hearing could easily pick up the minute noise the spider made from being this close. Oh? Arachne the 11,784th? Yes, that would fit well for any spider queen. I am still amused at your kingdom's selection methods, though. One would think the larger species of spiders would host the queen. But no, you decide by the lethality of your venom. Naruto nodded to himself as he recalled the time when, after his temper tantrum in the forest of death, that he'd been declared king by this spider's predecessor. Flashback. Naruto growled as he sat on the bodies of several tigers, each easily the size of a small house. He slowly looked around to see the result of his anger as various species of animals had been beaten within an inch of their various lives. It seemed the only real escapees to his wrath were the water-based animals who couldn't join in. Impressive, King of Foxes. Naruto tensed and whirled around, teeth bared in a snarl, and claws out ready to kill the being who got near, only to blink in confusion at the lack of anyone in sight. On your shoulder, young king. Naruto looked at his left shoulder before turning to his right to see a small spider standing unnaturally still on his shoulder. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's hard to get me in a genjutsu at this point, but a talking spider? That's the worst attempt I've ever seen. Shockingly, the spider crossed its front two legs as if offended. I'm just as real as you are. And really? I've been talking all my life, as do all animals. Naruto went deadpan. Oh, please, please, please say that I can now communicate with animals because of merging with the damn fox. See if I don't just level this forest. Naruto was damn sure he just saw the spider roll all 8 eyes. No, young king, it has to do with your new achievement. Naruto could only roll his eyes. And what would that be? Did I enter some game world and get the achievement one with nature by beating these guys senseless? He stomped his foot down on the largest tiger's head to make a point. The spider shook its tiny head in amusement. No, young king, you have fulfilled the requirements set by Kami to become the true king. Naruto frowned before closing his eyes to focus himself, and calm his rage to allow clearer thought. You've been saying king this and king that. What are you talking about? The spider settled itself down. When you're merging, you said? When you merged with the former king of all foxes, you became his successor for the title. Follows so far? Naruto scratched his cheek in thought. He recalled vaguely from the fox's shifting memories that title coming up a few times. He nodded slowly. The spider continued. Good, now as king of any animal type you gain automatic understanding of all your subjects. Meaning that any fox you'd have met would be able to converse like you would any human. Still with me? Naruto slowly nodded. He could find some vague sense in being able to understand foxes in general, being the new Kyuubi no Kitsune incarnate. Sure, but why can I understand you? The spider paused as if gathering itself. That is an ancient tale for all the beasts, including humans, summons, and the mighty Bijou. The tale begins with all life in the beginning, where Kami introduced the beasts to the world. The original beasts became kings and queens of their respective domains, with the Jubi being the true king of all. To put it simply, the hierarchy is Kami and the various gods, none are above them. Then below them is the true king. The true king answers only to the gods and obeys only the gods should they decide to get involved. Then below the true king is the kings of various factions, such as the king of cats, the king of canines, and so on. Now everything was fine with this until the true king, the Jubi no Ukami, who served as both king of canines and the true king, became enraged when the Shinju was defiled by someone. In his rage he brought untold carnage to the world. No one would dare stand against the true king until the king of humans at the time, your sage of 6 paths, fought and somehow defeated the Jubi, splitting him into the 9 Bijou. Each Bijou then became kings and queens of their domain, such as Nibi being the queen of all felines. Naruto was stunned. The fox's memories showed the fox being quite fond of the sage, thinking the human as his father. That's amazing. But why don't the humans have any kings? Human memory is short. After about 7 or 8 human generations, they had begun fighting for the right to be king, and after a while they just simply forgot amidst all the constant fighting. Anyway, back to the defeat of Jubi. Now by doing this the sage then became the true king. Unfortunately, unlike the Jubi, he was mortal. Near his death, Kami descended and laid down a set of instructions to be passed along for all species. In Kami's words, the world upon the true king's death will destabilize. One day a candidate will come to claim his rightful place as true king. The signs will be fourfold. The first, they must not seek it out. The second, they must be a king or queen. The third, they must defeat 7 monarchs and gain the support of at least a dozen others. And finally the fourth, they must be immortal. Nanny? The spider chuckled. Indeed, by sheer luck you completed 3 of the requirements by pure chance, and the fourth one involving combat and allegiance is half done. The spider pointed a leg out to the defeated pack of wolves. The largest one laying by the pile easily the size of the giant tigers. That one is the king of canines, and if you look carefully around you'll notice that around you are larger or stronger looking creatures of various species. The only species here without their leader are the tigers, as the Nibi is still sealed. Naruto frowned. 2 things. You mentioned summons, where do they fit in? The spider hummed in thought. Summons are a bit different. They are led by their sages, and sages are higher than the kings. But no summon has a king, but the true king. Summons are the true king's knights. No, let me expand on that a moment. To the true king, the faction kings are like commanding generals who control their factions to the king's satisfaction, and the summons are the fighting generals who go to battle at the head of the troops. Anyway, what's the other? Okay, the second is this. Why am I able to hear anything of this? Fantastic as all this is, it doesn't explain how I'm conversing with you. Oh, that's simple. Like how a king can understand their own faction fully, the true king can understand all of those under him. Come again? The spider again rolled its eyes. I mean, you are the true king, so you understand all animals. Naruto blinked. Wait, I didn't complete all 4 objectives. I don't have any allegiances from any other rulers. That got a chuckle from the spider. Oh, you do actually. I, Arachne, the 11,779th, queen of all spiders, hereby announce my allegiance, as well as the allegiance of the avian and aquatic kings and queens residing in the forest of death, to the king of foxes, now true king of all beasts, Uzumaki Naruto. Hail! Hail! Naruto snapped his head up at the loud call to see the branches above him laden with hundreds of birds. A large eagle opened massive wings and called out, "Take to the skies, my brethren, go and spread to the world that we have our true king with us once more." At this the various birds had taken off in random directions, all shouting out the news of their new lord. Naruto gaped at all this, momentarily stuck dumb at the suddenness of it all. A sudden thought jarred him from the craziness. Wait, I thought only the kings and true king could understand their subjects. How will the other animals understand the birds? The large eagle flapped down and softly landed before him. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the sheer size of the raptor. He was pretty sure eagles were not supposed to stand over 10 feet tall. The eagle bowed its head. My lord, Arachne forgot to mention this, but animals are allowed to communicate with each other under the circumstance that it allows us to serve our king better. This instance, for example, lets the avians call out and let the world know the true king has returned. Unfortunately, humans will easily dismiss this as an illusion or believe it's nonsense of some kind. After all, talking animals that aren't summons would be considered strange by them. Understood. Rock, my lord. Rock? Rock is the name of a gigantic bird of legend who could lift a mountain in its talons with ease. Naruto nodded. Okay, Rock, Arachne, please explain all this further for me. End flashback. Naruto shook himself from his memories. So what brings you here, Arachne-chan? Arachne huffed at the suffix before getting serious. My lord, a plot has been discovered against you. That old human you sensed darkness from was tagged with a flea as you ordered and has issued a mission to one of his minions to place a seal on your mate in order to gain compliance from you. We can only assume the seal is meant to give her pain or kill her at his whim. Arachne winced as the killing intent began to seep out of her king. He ground out through grinding teeth. When? Arachne gulped to calm herself. Tonight, my lord, around midnight. It's a new moon, so it'll be quite dark. The killing intent dissipated, much to Arachne's relief as Naruto took a deep breath. Good. There's a meeting tomorrow. I'll just have to hand the head over to that old crippled fool and let it serve as my final warning that I don't tolerate those who'd harm my mate. Thank you, Arachne. Now I must go. I have to meet my new victims, my cute little students. Arachne's sweat dropped as she crawled off to go do her own things. Naruto stood before the mirror. Being made of incredibly dense chakra, there wasn't need to bathe save to relax like in a hot spring, as he didn't sweat and all dirt or grime simply fell off with the thought. The only thing left to him now would be deciding what his attire would be for the day. Closing his eyes in concentration, he envisioned his chakra forming into the desired object before pushing it out. Opening his eyes, he nodded as he now was wearing a black and red version of his Godfather outfit. It would do for training those three for the day. I forgot to tell them to buy those items before meeting with me. Meh, it can be a warm-up. The shop is a decent jog from into the park. Nodding to himself, he left his parents' old home, making sure to set the locking seal before leaving. The streets were unusually quiet. Glancing around, he noticed the fear-filled eyes of the civilians as they watched him as if expecting him to suddenly start gutting them. Not what I expected. Fear sure, I did just get out of a supposedly inescapable prison. Oh wait, that's right, I was skipping home covered in blood. Yeah, that would be why. He stopped in the middle of the street, making everyone in sight hitch their breath in expectation and fear. Boo! The civilians let out a shriek and reacted with a mix of dead faints, pissing themselves, or running. Naruto snickered as he finally made it to the park at 6:55. The trio of friends were already there waiting. He nodded at the three. Early, good. Now, as warm-up, I need you three to jog to that shinobi clothing store in the market, and buy 4 armbands each. I forgot to tell you to get them yesterday, but this will work as a warm-up for now. Now shoo. He waved his hand dismissively, making the three trot off as he took a seat on the bench. It'd take at least a good half-hour at their speed before they could get back. Before he could get comfortable, however, he sensed a foul odor of arrogance and stupidity. Come on out, little Uchiha, I know you're there. And like an arrogant little peacock, Sasuke strode out in front of Naruto, Sharingan eyes ablaze. It's nice to see the Uchiha's faithful pet out of the kennel. Now you're free, and it's time to return to your master's side. Now obey me, Kyuubi. Naruto felt his eye twitch in annoyance before he slowly stood up and clapped his hands together as if to pray, making Sasuke smirk in his believed victory. Let us pray for this bitch's welfare. Kami, please let your divinity shine on this bitch's soul and guide my hand and make it strong, O Kami, so he might learn a bitch's place before a king. Amen. Based off a pimp named Slickback's pimp prayer from Boondocks. Sasuke grit his teeth. How dare why? Slap! Kakashi, who'd been finishing his half-hour of mourning at the memorial stone, heard a strange noise. Looking up, his eye widened before he dodged the body of Sasuke, who bounced along the ground before rolling into a tree with a thud, knocking him out. Kakashi was immediately at his student's side inspecting for damage. The first thing he noticed was the large hand mark covering half of the boy's face. Oh, so Naruto did perfect it then. The ultimate bitch slap. Naruto waved his smoking hand a little to clear it of said smoke. That should teach the bitch not to mess with me. Or I may have given him memory loss of this. Oh well, not like that, pink eye can affect me. Settling himself back down on the bench, he waited another 40 minutes before his new students finally returned, panting from exertion. He raised an eyebrow in mock irritation. What took you? Miyogi piped up. Old lady in front of us decided to gossip a bit. We actually ran the whole way back. She got up between breaths. Naruto shrugged. It doesn't matter. Anywho, let's begin. Now, for this coming month, I won't be actually giving you hands-on training save for a weekly spar. He held up a hand to stem their outbursts. I will, however, be giving you each something that will continually train your bodies to reach peak performance. On these 12 bands I will be placing resistance seals. Now what these will do is they will restrict and hinder your movement, making it seem like you're malking through thick mud. Now I wager it'll take 2 or 3 months for this to show real results, but that'll be enough for now. Now this will help you all as your reaction times will naturally speed up as you must predict things quicker, and since these particular seals are specialized, your speed will be unmatched. Now, even with these on, you'll still get faster, so it's not like you'll be constantly walking from how they will hinder you, they will simply adjust to get stronger to give you the same resistance. Understood? Getting 3 nods, he kept going. Now, rules for these. You may only remove them to sleep and shower. It won't do for something to happen in your sleep and you're a half-second slow to react. Also, should anything dangerous happen, you can deactivate them momentarily with a hand sign I will show you later. These seals will be key to your chakra for convenience. Getting more nods, he began his work, making the necessary hand seals before slamming his hands on the pile of armbands. FUIN. A brief glow later, he nodded his satisfaction. Perfect, now you 3 get your 4 and place them on your wrists and ankles. After another moment, they were situated properly. Right, you 3 know how to channel chakra properly, right? Good, now make this hand sign and channel your chakra to the bands. As they did so, he saw the sudden sluggishness and smirked, ready to begin their torment. Right, now 3 laps around the village. Nanny? They chorused with slowly waving arms. What's that? You want to do 5 instead? Well, far be it from me to deny my cute little students. Now I'll be gone when you finish, so here's your schedule each day. 5 laps, 50 push-ups, 60 sit-ups, 40 squats, 100 punches for each arm, same number for kicks on each leg. I expect this to be followed to the letter. And trust me in this, I will know if you slack off. And if you happen to get tired or sick, just remember you can sleep really well when dead, and sickness is just weakness leaving your body. Now hop to. Getting a few grumbles from the trio who set off on a slow jog, he chuckled and called out behind them. I can always double it if you keep asking so nicely. That got them quiet and decidedly faster to get away from their assuredly sadistic boss. Nodding at his retreating disciples, he headed to the hospital. He was in need of a piss and a cuddle. Not necessarily in that order. The receptionist blanched at seeing him and paged the doctor in charge of Hinata's care. The doctor understandably asked if they needed to do anything, and Naruto waved him off before going to his dear mate's room. Upon entering, he couldn't hold down a smirk at seeing both Hayashi and Hanabi there as well. Hayashi looked at Naruto and nodded and gave a half smirk, half grimace. I can no longer use that room, you realize. I wouldn't even use it for intimidation. No one would believe that much blood could be pulled from 5 grown people. Naruto shrugged. Served its purpose quite well if you asked me. Hayashi sighed in annoyance. And my nephew is in the next room from what you did to him. Your point? Hayashi shook his head as Naruto shifted his attention to the room's youngest occupant. Well, hello, little one. It's been so long since I saw you last. Why, last time we met you were about to turn 4 years old, and you were so clingy. Hanai narrowed her eyes at him. Who are you? Father told me Hinata had a fiancé I'd met before, but I don't recognize you at all. Naruto let out a gasp, acting as if he'd been struck deeply. Hanabi-chan. You wound me so deeply. To think it's been so long you don't recognize your beloved Foxonia. Hanabi's eyes widened. Foxonia? Naruto smiled as he let a tail out and gently stroked her cheek, getting a giggle from the girl before she glomped onto him with a tight hug. Foxo and I miss you. He stroked her hair gently with a melancholy smile. Now, Nabi-chan, we can do this later. I must discuss something with all of you, but first I must wake up your dear sister. Hanabi nodded as she slowly let him go and took a step back, smiling brightly up at him. Ruffling her hair, making her pout cutely, he moved to the bed where his mate lay, sleeping easily. He leaned down and gently nuzzled his cheek to hers. After a few seconds of this, Hinata sighed softly as she began to return the action. Do I get a wake-up kiss as well, Foxy-kun? Of course, my precious Hinaheim. He turned his head enough to softly drag his lips over her cheek, making her softly shiver before his lips met hers. Naruto kept the kiss light in respect to Hayashi and Hanabi for now. Wide awake now, my sweet Haim? Hinata slowly propped herself into a sitting position as she nodded. Yes, thank you for the wake-up, Foxy-kun. Hello, father, and Muto-chan. Hayashi gave her a soft smile. Hello, my daughter. It's good to finally see both of my real daughters together. Hinata looked at Hanabi. You don't seem too surprised, Hanabi-chan. Hanabi shook her head. I am really, but father took the time to explain it yesterday. So the shock has had a bit of time to wear off some. Naruto sighed, capturing everyone's attention. Nice as this reunion is, I need you all to listen very carefully to me. Hinata, I've had time to think over a lot of things while I was stuck in prison, and I realized that I would have to do something to ensure my sanity to come back, and to keep you safe. Unfortunately, it does raise a few issues. Hinata tilted her head, confused. What would that be, Foxy-kun? Naruto sighed tiredly. Hinata, I need to make you immortal. Chapter 6. The entire Hyuga family blinked before Hinata dug a finger into her ear. I'm sorry, Foxy-kun, but I think I didn't hear you right. I heard you say something rather odd about making me immortal. Naruto sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Well, it's not like I can just flick a finger and you're immortal. As it is, I'd need several things done before I could even consider doing this with any sense of safety or success. Earliest I could do this would be when you're 18, give or take. Even then, I'd need someone on the level Senju Tsunade and medical aidity to oversee the whole thing to ensure everything goes well. I have everything else taken care of, more or less. The process would turn you into a pseudo-bijou. Possibly on the level of the Gobi. Hayashi interjected. Interesting as that would be, you've failed to mention as to why you are making her immortal. Hanabi also chimed in. Since when were you immortal, Fox Sonii? Naruto sighed as he scratched the back of his head. I became immortal from the merging with Kyubi. Anyway, the fact is that I am immortal like any bijou, so I cannot die, and at most I would merely reform in a few years or less possibly. Unlike a bijou though, I am simply too powerful to be sealed away or even into someone to make a new Jinchuriki. The fox from before could only be safely put into an Uzumaki body due to the sheer amount of power it had, and now from the merging I am on an even higher level than that. I digress. Like I said before, I am immortal, and as it is, Hinata is not. So in 50, 60, 70 years, she would die, and re-enter the cycle of reincarnation. Now, unlike others who would be part of this cycle, I have done something that sets her apart. Hinata gasped as she rubbed a spot on her neck. The mark. With a nod, the redhead continued. Yes, when you'd be reborn, that mark would appear as well. I am attached to you and only you, Hinata, and by extension your soul. I would be drawn to your soul no matter what. This, of course, would lead to several issues. Hayashi raised an eyebrow. Issues? With an unseen movement, Naruto had grabbed Hayashi by his shoulders and shook vigorously with a panicked look. You don't understand. Reincarnation isn't a set process. She could be reborn as an animal. Or a boy. Even if she's reborn as a female, I'd be forced to have romantic thoughts about a child. I'm mentally insane. I'm not mentally deranged like some rabid freak. I refuse to become like that. Foxy-kun, let father go before you give him whiplash. Naruto let Hayashi go before watching the man crumple down with swirly eyes. Hanabi crouched by her dazed father, gently shaking him to wake him back up. Oops. Hinata sighed, shaking her head. It's okay, just be careful, okay? But this whole thing. I admit I'd rather you only be with me, and not with anyone else, even if it's me reborn. Sigh, look, you said I'd have to be 18 first, right? Well, that's not for a while, so let's not get too deep in thought about it. Naruto nodded, happy she hadn't said no to it. A couple years' time he was sure she'd agree, so long as he gently coaxed her along. Also, there's going to be an attempt on you tonight in an effort to control me. What? The combined yell of the three Hyuga hurt his sensitive hearing, so it was a minute of pain-filled whimpering as he rubbed his ears before he could respond. I have spies placed where I needed them, and just this morning I got a response that a certain foolish cripple is thinking of using you as a leash on me. I have something planned already to not only ensure this plan fails, but that I will also deliver the head of the offender to the mastermind. Oh my, it'll be my second council meeting, and it will be just as fun! Hayashi didn't know whether to grimace or smirk at that. If he gets involved with all the council meetings, I may just look forward to them. Breaking himself from the giggle fit at the twisted thoughts he had from possibly using the severed head to beat Danzo around the council room, Naruto quickly nuzzled Hinata before kissing her cheek. I will have to go now, my dear. I sense I am needed elsewhere. Nuzzling back, she murmured. Be safe, my foxy Quinn. Always my sweet Hinaheim. Nodding to Hayashi and ruffling Hanabi's hair, which earned him an adorable pout, he left the room to let the family talk alone. Sometimes he really hated the merge with the fox, just as much as he could appreciate a few things from it. One thing, though, he particularly disliked was the emotion sensing, as it was very difficult to keep off, and when it wasn't suppressed properly, he could sense everyone's emotions. The nightmares from feeling that green monster's youthful emotions still haunted him. And now he apparently cloned himself if what he sensed was true. But now he was thankful for the ability, as it alerted him to the arrival of a great ball of perversion mixed with seriousness. His dear godfather Jiraiya was back in town. Following the aura of sleaze and wisdom, he approached the bathhouse. Of course. Why did I expect different? Oh well, it makes this a bit easier for me anyway. Sucking in a deep breath, he yelled. An old white-haired pervert is peeking. A rather impressive amount of killing intent began to radiate from the women's side of the baths before a very unmanly shriek was heard along with the battle cries of justly pissed women. Turning his head, Naruto watched as Jiraiya came skidding around the corner before bolting straight at him, followed by several kunoichi, including Tsum Inuzuka, Enko Mitarashi, and Kurinai Yahi. Hey Ero Sennin. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto before slinging him over his shoulder and taking off at double the speed to escape the practically, and in Tsum's case literally, frothing at the mouth women after his precious manhood. Damn you, GKI. This is in your blood, I swear. Propping his chin in his hand as if bored, Naruto asked as he watched the women who were slowly being lost from his remarkably comfortable spot on his godfather's shoulder. Whatever could you mean? Jiraiya growled out. Your beloved father would do the exact same thing whenever he figured I wasn't training him enough. Ah yes, I do recall several similar incidents from his memories now that you mention it. Having finally lost the women, they stopped at a deserted training ground where Jiraiya promptly threw Naruto off him. Alright, Gaki, chit-chat is over now. Naruto sighed. Yes, I assume you recall your promise? You summon the Toad Sages if I get free. Jiraiya sighed. I knew somehow it'd happen. All of the Uzumaki were like that, stubborn to the point they'd come back to life just to spite the one that killed them. I'm actually pretty sure that's how they damn near crippled 3 major villages by themselves. Naruto waved that off. Yes, my clan was comprised of the biggest and baddest asses. Now get on with the summoning. Jiraiya huffed and clapped his hands together as if in prayer. Naruto sighed as he felt the rush of natural energy wash over him as it gathered in Jiraiya. It was a pity, this power sage mode Jiraiya called it was beyond him. As the king, he could not be allowed access to natural chakra. Not that it was needed, but the pure euphoria of it made him jealous of Jiraiya's ability. Shaking himself from his daze, he saw Jiraiya begin to have a strange pigmentation around his eyes as his nose became bulbous and wart-covered before he flipped through several hand signs. Summoning Jutsu. 2 small plumes of smoke appeared as Jiraiya let the gathered energy go. Jiraiya boy, why did ya summon us? Came a male voice. I was fixin' to make dinner when ya called us out, came a female voice. Jiraiya sighed. Ma, Pa, I think this warrants me summoning you. As the smoke cleared, Naruto looked down at the 2 toads and blinked. Toads can grow hair? He blurted out, pointing to the male. Actually, it's not hair, it's just warts that grew to look like hair. Naruto tilted his head in confusion as Jiraiya gave the elder toad a shocked look. Seriously? I thought that was all hair for years. Pa rolled his eyes. This can wait. You summoned us to speak with this youngster or something else, I imagine? Naruto stepped forward at this point. Yes, I asked my dear godfather to summon you 2 due to an agreement. He made a wager after I'd been imprisoned that should I be able to escape, he'd allow me to see the Toad Sages to allow my message be delivered to the summons. Pa raised an eyebrow at that. Well then, Boyle, what could be so important to have Jiraiya boy summon us? I can easily sense you are very powerful. It gives me pause to consider the fact you are quite young, yet your power far outstrips Jiraiya boy at his best. But the fact he isn't looking particularly nervous around you speaks for your character. Naruto looked at the Toad Summoner, and saw that he indeed didn't look particularly upset or worried, even despite having found out the single most powerful entity in existence was free to do as it pleased and standing mere feet away from him. It did beg the question. Now that he mentions it, despite me breaking out of a seemingly impossible to escape prison, you're awful lax around me, almost insulting really that you're not more tense. Jiraiya shrugged. Way I figure it, I just have to stay on your good side to not have any reason to fear pain of death from you. From our previous talk making that bet, you don't seem to care really about most life in general save for your little girlfriend. Admittedly, you were still somewhat angered at what happened, but Inoichi, after having rechecked your psyche, had assured me and Sensei that so long as we don't outright betray you or commit a sin in your eyes, that you were fine with us. Naruto gave a nod in understanding before turning back to Ma and Pa. Anywho, the reason I asked for you two is to enlighten the summons that I, Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, Nidaime Kyubi no Yoko, and King of the Foxes 7 years ago, became the Sandaime King of all beasts after having completed the requirements set by Kami-sama. Upon my order, I set to you both the tasks of delivering the news to all summons of my ascension and to receive the personal scroll of the king. The two sages stare wide-eyed a moment before turning to Jiraiya, who only nodded before Ma sighed out. Well, it seems that old geezer saw true then, that this generation would bring back the king. Alright, you two stand back so we can get some breathing room. Summoning that scroll takes a lot of energy. Nodding, the man and humanoid Bijou took a few steps back. The two sages clapped their hands together and began to gather an enormous amount of nature energy. Naruto felt himself getting drowsy from the sheer calm and euphoria that was crashing into him before he roughly shook his head to clear his mind. Jiraiya whistled. That's a lot of nature chakra. I can't even handle a third of what just one of them is pulling. Naruto nodded. Quite impressive. After another moment, both sages opened their eyes, glowing from the sheer amount of power they were molding as they called out. Summoning! King's Scroll! A poof of smoke showed that the jutsu had brought something, but when it cleared, both Jiraiya and Naruto deadpanned at seeing a small scroll that couldn't be much bigger than the average sealing scroll. Naruto shook his head. I really shouldn't have expected much, but still I'm horribly disappointed. I honestly expected it be much larger. Jiraiya nodded. Size aside, I figured the thing would look more important. I could easily mix that up with any of the dozens of scrolls I have sealed on me. I figured it would have some kind of gold trim, or hell, be made of a rolled sheet of gold. Ma bopped Jiraiya on the head. Quit your yappin'! Anyway, this scroll isn't big or flashy looking because it's not meant to be like the other summoning scrolls. Kami and Inari didn't really expect there to be more than one king. Pa hopped up to Naruto with the scroll and opened it to show only one name that Naruto could only assume was the Sage of Six Paths' name, confirmed when he looked back in the memories from the fox. Pricking his finger with his sharp canine, he wrote his name and fingerprints like the sage had done before Pa snapped the scroll shut and let it poof back to where it was before. Naruto sighed, glad that was done with. Okay, now that's been settled, I have a message that needs to be spread out amongst the summons. I've been made aware of a plot by my subordinates to invade Konoha, and though I hold no special love for the village, there's still people in it that I'd rather not have to deal with some fool's ideas of conquest. That got all three resident sages' attentions. Jiraiya broke the pause. An invasion? Who? When? Naruto waved his hand dismissively. Given his recent actions, it's safe to assume it's Orochimaru. Even then, my subordinates, while efficient and beyond capable, are not perfect, and as such weren't able to get all the details. Given his contract with the snakes, I'm sure he's involved them in the invasion, and as such, since their loyalty is to me first and him at a distant second, the snakes, along with any other summons possibly involved, will be told to relay through the toads any plans they know of, and what may or may not happen. I have some ideas on the possible plans being used, but I'd prefer confirmation. Jiraiya pinched the bridge of his nose. Well, I have been hearing rumors about rumblings in Suna from my spies, so they are a possibility. If they are involved, then I suggest talking to the weasel's ma, pa. The two sages nodded before puffing away in clouds of smoke. Jiraiya sighed in annoyance. Great, an invasion by my oh so beloved former teammate. I suppose I'll go inform Sensei now. Naruto cut him off. Nah, don't go right now, there's a council meeting tomorrow, and with what is happening tonight I'm going to make it quite memorable. Jiraiya shivered as he felt like his spine was injected with ice. Do I want to know? Naruto smirked evilly. Oh, it's not going to be too bad, just a couple thousand of my shadow clones making enhanced paper bombs to show a would-be king that his empire has fallen. Jiraiya sighed in defeat. So cryptic, you brat. Fine, but I'd better not be humiliated tomorrow. Naruto shrugged as he walked away to where he could set up the clones. Can't promise that with your foolish behavior. Hospital, midnight. A silent shadow crept down the halls, avoiding being seen by on-duty nurses and doctors working the night shift. Upon nearing its destination, it silently entered the vents to avoid the ANBU stationed outside his target's room. His master had assigned him the task of placing a dead switch on the Hyuga Eris. Once placed, his master would use it to control the boy now made demon, using its useless emotions against it. As he entered the room through the vent, he spotted his target sleeping soundly in the bed. Landing lightly on the floor, he turned to look at the door to ensure the ANBU stationed outside hadn't been alerted by the slight sound. Reassured he'd not been detected, he turned and his eyes widened, seeing a now conscious Hinata staring at him with Byakugan blazing, a scowl on her face. Hello, Sai, I see that bastard sent you to do his dirty work. Normally I'd be worried what with my condition, but I'm feeling quite secure here. Sai straightened and put on his horribly fake grin. And why is that, Hyuga-sama? 3 words. Hinata pointed just past him. Angry Bija boyfriend. Sai was the roughly spun around before a hand wrapped around his throat, choking him. His eyes widened, seeing Naruto grinning down at him like a horrible specter as the light from the window cast his face in partial shadow, though doing nothing to hide the glowing violet eyes and wide fawn-filled grin. Hello, robot boy. Outside, the two ANBUs shuddered slightly as they heard Naruto begin to chuckle evilly. They'd been told earlier about what was happening inside, and after hearing that particular laugh had decided the boy/demon had it covered. The left ANBU glanced down as he felt something. Damn it, these were new sandals too. The right ANBU looked down to see blood flowing out from under the door. Yeah, I'm not cleaning up inside. Oh, make Hayashi's morning. The next morning, the head of the Hyuga clan felt like spoiling himself a little and sleeping in a bit. Now, normally this wouldn't do for a prestigious member of the greatest clan in Konoha, but you have to consider what would be waiting for him after waking up. 1. The medical report on the Hyuga elders' corpses, which he didn't really care to see. 2. He'd have to deal with whatever injuries and trauma his nephew had just suffered. 3. He'd have to silence the rest of the head family, and put his foot down once and for all. Now their main support was gone. All in all, Hayashi felt an hour or 2 extra sleep was warranted. The door slid open and soft thumps could be heard before small hands gently shook him. "Sama, please wake up, we have a problem." Hayashi cracked an eye open to see his youngest, Hanabi, crouched beside him. "What is it, my daughter?" Hanabi frowned. Nijinizan was found in the hallway covered in dozens of scratches and had a broken rib. The medics are healing him and asked me to inform you. Hayashi sighed tiredly. "Is that all?" Hanabi shook her head. "The head doctor said she has a completed report made and says that she wanted me to emphasize the words hilarious and nightmarish for some reason." Hayashi closed his eyes again and let out a deep sigh. "I see. I will take the appropriate actions needed then, in a couple hours." Without waiting to hear her startled response, Hayashi hit a pressure point to knock out Hanabi before pulling her under the covers with him and promptly falling back asleep.